Good morning, I'm Dog Zwei. Welcome to my channel. Alright, I want to get a few things straight here. Number one is that I purchased all this equipment with my own money. I'm not affiliated with any company. I won't sell you anything. I'm here to give you my honest, unbiased opinion and experience on any of these products that are reviewed here. If this is a channel that you want to listen to, go ahead. But if it's something there you want me to sell you something, it ain't going to happen. I'm going to review a lot of things here. I also give reviews of vendors and their support system. So with that, we're going to get started here on a review of a product here, and I'll relate my experience with it. Alright, thank you. Okay, I apologize for any crickets you hear in the background, but that's part of living in an old farmhouse out in the middle of Iowa, and this time of the year I got a cricket and I've looked for him, but I can't seem to find him. But anyway, as you can see, I've added the two EG4 100 amp MPPTs here. The reason for that was my array is 420 feet away, and I'm running 8 530 watt panels that have a VOC of 49, and so I run them in series, and so I want to keep my voltage up to minimize voltage drop and power loss from the array to the house. Okay, I had run off the LV6548 MPPTs, but I had to split my array in half to keep the VOC low enough, and it worked pretty good. But I was only running off half my array. So once it started getting warm out and I wanted to run my heat pump for air conditioning and that I decided I'm going to get these MPPTs installed. So they're pretty straightforward to put in. I have the top one installed since the 4th of July weekend. I had some time there to get them in, get the one in. I redneck wired in a battery cable down to the Victron bus bar at the bottom of my array, and they work good. That one I haven't had a single problem with. So the second one has probably been in 6 weeks probably, or something like that. After about 2 weeks of it being in, and it worked good. Basically, it started setting an F01 code, which is a bus soft start failure code. Now, I don't know what criteria sets that code. I contacted Signature Solar and asked tech support, and they didn't have an answer. And of course, the user response is it's installer error, which you hear that all the time with them. But hey, I guess that's their right to say such a thing. But it doesn't explain why it worked fine for 2 weeks and the other one has worked flawlessly. Okay? So, in another video, I'll probably do another review on the MPP Solar and some other stuff. But I'll go over a few things here on installing these MPPTs. For the most part, you know, I mean, I'm getting more production out of these than I was with the EG4 6500 EX inverters and using those MPPTs, because these are rated for 5,000 watts. And of course, my string array is my array strings are 4240, and I'm able to pull a full 4.3 kilowatts off of that string. So I mean, these are pretty efficient. I'm pretty amazed, you know. I did notice that when they get down to 80 volts, the unit will shut down. So like in the evening, once the array voltage gets down low enough, it'll shut down. Now, I will tell you, the F01 code that sets will only set under low light conditions in the evening. I have my ideas on why that occurs, but I'm not going to share them here because I'm still dealing with, or trying to deal with, tech support at Signature Solar. So basically they're ghosting me right now, so whatever. But we'll get to that point. I'll probably do that in another review. So I'm going to go over some assembly here and what I all did. So if you looked at my previous videos, you'll notice that I had two of the IMO PV isolator switches I removed the one, added a junction box there, and that allowed me to run my conduit down to a junction box at the bottom. And I'll show you that right here. Okay, you see that junction box down there? That's just a cheap Beaver box off of Amazon. And as you also see, there's two conduit, one for each cable. And then I run that to a PVC box that I just butted up against my Victron bus bar. And what that allowed me to do was just make the transition over to the Victron bus bar. Basically just have a hole in the side and the cable just runs straight through it. Okay, but I had needed to make a transition somewhere. As far as the MPPTs and their conduit, of course that's just flex, MC, and then one problem with it was, and here I'll show you on what we're running into, and when you see it you'll be like, nice. Okay, alright, so let's see how we wired this in. Okay, we have our IMO here. I run my PV wires down through that piece of conduit to this junction box, okay? And then I just ran some MC over here. Basically those are my PV wires and a positive negative battery cable. 4 gauge works just fine for this because, you know, that's 100 amps. So the green wire here goes to this bonding lug on the case here. And I don't know why it's not inside of where your connections all are, but I just drilled a hole in the bottom here and behind the holes and just ran my EGC back to my grounding lug. Okay, on another note here, to run this here for the MC connectors, I was able to use 2 of the screw ones and 1 screw on one. It's the only way you're going to get it together. There's not enough room in between the holes to run 3 of the screw type. Another oversight on somebody's part. I mean, the thing just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so like I say, if you're using MC here, make sure you put your bushing in there on your ends before you slide it up in there. And then we just go from there. My cables run down through this junction box and they're going to go down to this box. Okay, I purchased 2 Blue Sea bus bars. Okay, and I got another video. I'll show you how I stepped that off. I wanted it stepped off so that way I could run my cables on through here and I didn't have to worry about, you know, any problems with cables overlapping another bus bar or anything like that. So I'll show that video right here right now. So I'm going to make a standoff here. We just use a 1/4 inch button head bolt. And you can see the button head there. I just bored the hole out to a 1/4 inch. It's long threaded. I got a nut on the very top here and a nut here, and then I just use a piece of 1/2 inch conduit to insulate it. And that seems to work pretty good. So moving on to the next step. So here it is. I got it all assembled together and gonna put it here in a EG4 box. So this will sit in here. I got to punch some holes here for the top and the 2 sides to run my cables through, but I'll get that done and start installing it. Okay, from there it just runs 2 cables over here to this box, which is just butted up against my Victron bus bar, and I just put a hole on the inside, just ran my cable straight through and attached it to my Victron bus bar. It's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward. You know, if I wanted to, I suppose I could have ran MC cable here and made it quicker. But I had the conduit laying around, and yeah, I'm a conduit kind of guy. So I prefer, you know, EMT over the MC. But there's times you're going to have to use the MC. All right. So that's basically all it is. I'm going to go over some settings here, and that should be it. I'll give you my rest of my review and conclude it. All right. Thanks. Alright, let's look at the display here. On this side, we show the PV voltage that's coming in, and this is my battery voltage. Okay, it's pretty simple. You can scroll down here. This will give you the amount of amps you're getting off of the PV array and how many amps are going into the battery. and this here will give you the number of watts. Now today it's been raining, it's partly cloudy. It might come out later, the sun, but you know, these have been very efficient. I mean, I'm getting more through these than I was on the 6500 EXs, and it's pretty impressive, you know. I mean, I've got, like I said, 8,240 watts of panels, and I'm seeing 8.3 kilowatts coming in, and that's pretty amazing, you know. So you're harvesting pretty efficiently here, and there's no over paneling, no wasted power. Okay, so if we want to get into the settings menu, we go here and hold the enter button down. This here is my charge voltage. That's setting number 1. Okay. Setting number 2 is your float voltage. This is your charge current on setting number 3. I've got it cranked up as high as it'll go. I know I'll never get to that point. I don't have enough wattage on there. This setting here is for a mod bus ID, and just ignore it. It doesn't do anything. It would be different if you had them daisy chained together, but really there's not any communication between any of these. Number 5 is just your backlight on your screen. You can turn it on and off. Number 6, I have this set actually to, supposedly the alarm is supposed to go off. Now this is where it gets interesting. So this is for the alarm, okay? Setting number 1 would be, show over here, would be the alarm is supposed to be muted, okay? And the funny part is, this is the inverter that's set to code, and even with the alarm muted on setting number 1 for number 6, the alarm would go off. So I'm messing around, and I thought, well, let's just try number 3. I haven't heard the alarm since, but I don't know if the inverters or the charge controller has set that fault code again. I've tried to capture it the other night, but it didn't set, and I've asked my wife, and she says she's not aware of it. But it's quite possible the manual is wrong, and that wouldn't surprise me any. And setting number 3 probably is muted, and setting number 1 is that the alarm goes off when a fault code sets. Now this is really strange. This is setting number 7, and that's your battery type. Okay. Now you'd think you would put that as the first setting, but no, it is the last setting. And the way you change any of these settings is you simply just hit the enter button. It'll start blinking on that side, and you can go up or down. And your only 2 choices here on battery type are lithium or USE. Now if you can have communication to an EG4 battery, but if you look in the manual, it'll tell you that you should not have your inverters having communication with the EG4 batteries at the same time as this MPPT. I don't know whether it would work with a hub, but I doubt it would. I mean, obviously, it creates a conflict somewhere in there, and they'll tell you in the manual to just use user-defined settings. To get out of these settings, you just hit escape, and that'll bring you back to the home screen. So let's discuss whether or not I'm satisfied with these. The top one, I'm very satisfied. I have not had any problem with it. The bottom one, like I said, it ran for 2 weeks before it started setting this bus start failure code. My concern is that there's probably a problem in the circuit board, a bad connection somewhere. But, you know, there's a possibility that it's a software, firmware issue. I think what it's doing, is, to tell you the honest truth, is it shuts down once it hits below 80 volts, and then you still have enough light, your PV jumps up over 80 volts, and so the unit powers up. Now these shut down every night automatically and restart in the morning. And they only draw like 25 watts to power up the screen and power up the unit. You know, the fans on them, they're loud enough, you know, you can hear it running, and we're probably only pulling in, you know, 1 to 1.5 kilowatts right now. When they get ramped up, you know, and you're pulling, you know, over 4,000 watts through them, you can hear it upstairs if you listen, you know. My bathroom is above here, and I can hear it when I'm in there. I don't hear it when I'm in the kitchen, living room, or anywhere else, but, you know, that noise is directly below. Probably with some insulation in the floor joist, I could probably get rid of a lot of that noise, so, you know, I'm not too worried. it was no different with the EG4 6500 EXs. When those ramped up and you were pulling full power, they did the same thing. As you noticed, I hung these all with using Unistrut. I prefer that because if I have to change something out, I don't have to drill new anchors in the wall. And I get it spaced away from the wall. This is an uninsulated concrete wall. In the wintertime, it gets cold here, and then there's always a possibility that you're going to have moisture form along that wall or condense there, and you're going to end up with some moisture either condensing inside your unit or seeping its way in. So this is the way I prefer to do it. Other people may have their own choice, but that's just the way I do all my stuff here. Everything's got an airspace behind it. I like that for the extra cooling effect anyway. So these have been really good. Would I recommend them yet at this point? It's a 50-50 crapshoot. I'm telling you. You might get one good one and one bad one like I have, and then tech support just ignores you. I mean, I've never seen a company run tech support the way they do. It's pretty bad. I've sent them 3 emails since I talked to tech support. I sent them all the photos they wanted 6 days after I received their email, and their policy is that they automatically close the case at 7 days. But I had sent everything back to the tech at 6 days, and I've emailed him back. I also went to their website and filled out the form there, and yet I have not received a response. Originally, I had emailed them before I called in, never received a response to that email either. That is not the way to run your customer support. You're not even getting acknowledgement that they received anything. And when I called in, I sat on the phone for 24 minutes on hold. So they try and claim that, oh yeah, you get through right away, but within 10 minutes, it's not true. So whatever, they can say whatever they want, but I'm telling you, I would highly recommend these if the tech support was good. If they came out, and I even asked, what is the criteria to set this code? And the response, of course, was, well, lots of things. It's just a simple charge controller. And then they, I don't understand that. And then they said, well, it could be installer error. Now, really, you got 4 terminals, and they're clearly marked which ones go where. Unless you're a complete buffoon and don't know correct polarity, I don't understand. If you had hooked it up incorrectly, I would assume you're going to blow a fuse or something inside internally if you reverse polarity on them. But, how does it work for 2 weeks and then all of a sudden start setting this bus failure, And I'm like, nah, that's just, it's something wrong with the unit. It's a firmware issue or a hardware issue. Which one, I don't know. They've been absolutely no help whatsoever. It resets every morning because it shuts down, so the code is cleared out, and as soon as the sun comes up in the morning, they power up, turn on, and when the voltage gets high enough that it can start searching on the MPPT, and they'll start charging. It works just fine, other than the fact that it likes to set this code. So, like I say, it's a crapshoot. Would I recommend it? No. And the reason why is the tech support is that poor. I'm just flabbergasted. They've tried to claim they've corrected their problems. I belong to the do-it-yourself solar farm that Will Prowse created. And you see so many posts and threads about the lack of support or problems. I went through the EG4 6500EX, like pulsing problem. And the only thing I changed was putting in these LV6548s. I didn't change any of my bonding anywhere. I didn't change anything else. I never had a light flicker. So they tried covering their problem up with firmware. It didn't work. They RMA'd my original inverter, sent me another pair, and those were even worse. I installed the latest firmware in those. And then my lights in the basement here, when I turned them off, would glow in the dark. So obviously, and I'd measured, the voltage between neutral and ground, and, I was getting 7 volts. And I'm like, it's backfeeding somewhere off of these inverters. I don't have any of that. And the other problem you had is, the H-bridge switching on the 6500EX was very, very bad waveform. You can see the glitch in the waveforms, and you can see that in my other videos with the lab scope. You don't have any of that with the LV6548. So, I mean, I'm pretty well sold on these, you know, and I know EG4 is pushing their new 18K PV, but here's the issue. If you have problems, you're going to be dealing with their tech support. And boy, I tell you, it's not worth it. And actually, you could buy a Solarc 12K, which puts out 12,000 watts continuous. And that's the thing with the other thing with the 18K PV is they call it the 18K PV, but the actual rating on it is 12,000 watts continuous. So if you compare that to the Solarc 12K, the Solarc actually is cheaper. And from what I've heard, the support is much better. You know, you're not going to get this problem that I have where they just don't respond or acknowledge. I've never seen a company that runs their customer service and tech support that way. That's pretty bad. So, you know, I guess when I hear from them, I'll update and we'll go from there. But, you know, it's not a deal breaker for me as far as the one setting the code, because as long as I get rid of the stupid alarm and I don't have to listen to it, I can care less if the light's on saying it has a fault, because it resets every night and starts charging again normally. The only other issue is if it's an internal hardware fault, like a bad connection on a circuit board, eventually it'll probably fail, you know, and who's going to end up eating it? I will, you know, and I think that's their deal. I think they're running into some problems. They could be financial or something. I mean, they really, it had a cost of money over that 6500 EX fiasco. So, you know, who knows where it'll end up. You know, it could turn out for the better. I don't know. But for now, no, I do not recommend buying one of these just because of the tech support issues. Other than that, they do work and they're simple. You know, if you're willing to put up with the alarm, it's a good alternative to any other 500 volt rated charge controllers. This one's pretty reasonable, you know, at $400. You know, the other ones you start talking $800-900 pretty fast. But then again, probably one set of code. So until my next video, thank you for watching. We'll see how things go.